S1MPLE is the best player of the decade. How to build future top-tier teams. Liquid's questionable behavior and the results of Blast Austin Majors Stage 3. Plus plenty of other exciting news from the world of CS2. You're watching CS2 News Hub. Let's get straight to it. As always, we'll kick things off with some roster news. This time, Gamerlegion have benched the AWPer, slend. According to reports, this decision came after a string of poor performances at top-tier events. Coach Ash had previously mentioned that slend was dealing with some minor psychological struggles and confidence issues. To recap, Gamerlegion placed 15th-16th at PGL Astana, missed out the major after falling out of MRQs, and did manage to grab a 5th-6th place finishes at both IM Dallas and Melbourne, but that's not enough. Over the past 3 months, slend averaged a .97 rating and .88 impact. There's no word yet on who will replace him, but it's worth noting that Gamerlegion already played IM Dallas with AWPer in their lineup. But, you know, it's Gamerlegion, they may just straight sign up someone young and ambitious. We'll see. Now, speaking of roster moves, we couldn't skip over Liquid, but to really understand what's going on, we need to rewind a bit. In our last video, we covered how Liquid went 0-3 at the major and bombed out in humiliating fashion. Naturally, the CEO of Liquid felt the need to respond. He took to Twitter and said that the result was terrible, but that Liquid was built to endure this. So far so good, but then, in the very same post, he plugged a new Amazon documentary episode about Liquid's EWC journey, which he hadn't watched yet. Can you imagine? And that's exactly when things exploded. The community's reaction to the thread was even harsher than to the 0-3 itself. Basically because it felt like a tone-deaf PR, an ad for a documentary right underneath a defeat post. In fact, the promo blurb was longer than the actual statement about the loss. And there's more. The series was basically funded by EWC's organizers, who are the Saudis. And Liquid's relationship with them has been rocky in the past. Richard Lewis, for example, even ran an investigation into that. So fans weren't exactly thrilled to see a cheerful plug right after a humiliating dropout from the major. But that was just the beginning of the mess. Not long after, an interview with Nerds came out, and he said a simple thing: player swaps in Liquid are handled solely by upper management, and the players themselves only find out after the decisions are made, which basically means that no one knows what to expect after the major. And that's not all, my friends. To make things worse, there was already backlash before the tournament. In a previous interview, Twistzz revealed the team came into the event feeling drained thanks to an exhausting bootcamp. That didn't sit well with the fans, who couldn't believe that the squad showed up to the biggest event of the season already burned out. So either Liquid's management has no clue how to properly prepare a team, or they desperately need help handling media fallout. Because right now, damage control isn't cutting it. While Western fans were busy criticizing Liquid's questionable behavior online, Chinese CS fans went straight for the memes, and they didn't hold back. Emilia gave a not-so-subtle nod to the ongoing trolling after Lynn Vision's win over Liquid. In the Chinese CS community, Twistzz has earned a nickname, Director. One popular theory is that it comes from Palace Director, hinting at behind-the-scenes drama or power plays within the team. But there's another layer to it. In Chinese, Palace Director is written like Gongjian, if I did it correctly, which sounds almost identical to Gongjian, meaning bow and arrow. And because of that wordplay, Chinese fans often use bow and arrow emojis or gestures when talking about Twistzz, and Emilia leaned into the joke, mimicking a bow after taking Liquid down. A brutal but creative way to celebrate the win. Before we move on to the next news, let me tell you about CSGO Fast, as they're turning 10 years. CSGO Fast is the oldest and most trusted website in the history of CS skin games. Feel like Gaben is unfair to you? On CSGO Fast you can open tons of profitable cases and pull that dream skin you've always wanted. They've got a huge variety of games, including intense case battles. You can even invite a friend and win together. Surely you all love raffles. CSGO Fast runs free raffles every 6 hours, giving away skins to random participants. Plus, they regularly host special events. Right now is their 10-year anniversary. Just look at the prizes up for grabs. And if you're a true CS veteran, you already know the community has trusted CSGO Fast for years. That's why they have a loyalty system for regular users and a ranking system with extra bonuses. Do I even need to mention skin prices? You already know they're awesome. And if you don't want to deposit, no problem. You can always use the referral system to earn points. Use promo code CSGO News Live to get plus 10% to your deposit and a free case. The link will be in the pinned comment. And while Liquid seems to be struggling with management issues and meme control, there might actually be a blueprint for how to fix that, or better yet, how to build a top team from scratch. Recently, Groove, the former coach and manager of Cloud9 and Gambit, shared an interesting concept that could define the future of Elite CS. His idea is to build multiple lineups within the same org and rotate the players and compete with each other. The logic is simple: internal competition boosts motivation, pushes players to improve, and creates depth. But in practice, this kind of system is hard to implement. Here's why. First, bootcamps and LANs. If one lineup is playing LANs and the other is stuck with grinding online cups, the system collapses. Hosting full-scale bootcamps for 2 or more squads also requires massive financial investment. Second, obviously, tournament rules, because most TOs don't allow multiple rosters from the same orgs to compete in the same event, due to, conflicts of interest. And lastly, player ambition. Many players just don't want to sit in a reserve team under a tier 1 org. They'd rather start for a tier 2 team than warm the bench under a big name. Right now, the only team seriously experimenting with this setup is Spirit. Their academy system is arguably the closest we've seen to Groove's vision. Meanwhile, ironically, the current world's #1 Vitality doesn't even have an academy team. So while the model is promising, turning it into reality is still a huge challenge. My friends, what do you think about it? Tell us in the comments below. In the same interview, Groove also shed some light on why Valve and tournament organizers are putting so much restrictions on coaches. According to Groove, it all comes down to one thing: maintaining maximum fair play between teams. Even the smallest signals, a touch, a gesture, or a facial expression, can be used to communicate strategies, and Valve clearly wanted to eliminate any room for abuse. And that part kinda makes sense, but anyways, recently it's not just coaches who are being restricted, managers are now getting hit too. The problem is that rules differ from tournament to tournament. Basically, Groove explains that a team might show up to a major and there get penalized for something that was totally fine at a previous event. Groove believes that solution is clear: the scene needs a unified rulebook. It would make life easier for everyone, and it would also help to improve the VRS ranking system, since the standardized framework is exactly what's missing right now. I mean, if only Valve cared to do one. Speaking of the devil, it looks like Valve are finally starting to do something after Olofmeister publicly called them out. Lately, cheaters haven't been just banned in Premiere or regular matchmaking. Bans are now hitting across other game modes as well. Word's been spreading in cheater forums. Wait, they have those? And also several clips have surfaced that seemed to back it up. And yeah, it seems that they're getting banned all over CS. And it feels like a huge relief, to be honest. If this keeps up, the game might finally become a better place. Let's just hope it's not a one-time sweep. s1MPLE got nominated as the Player of the Decade. The Esports Awards recently revealed the nominees for their Special Decade Awards, covering the years from 2015 to 2025. Valve obviously made it to the shortlist of the Developer of the Decade, while CS was featured among the Game of the Decade nominees. Meanwhile, top orgs like NAVI, Astralis, and Vitality also made it to Team of the Decade list. But the real spotlight is the PC Player of the Decade, featuring none other than ZywOo, coldzera, and s1MPLE. And by the way, s1MPLE also appears in the Personality of the Decade, alongside Tariq, Fallen, and Shox. Surprisingly, Dunk didn't make it into the Breakthrough of the Decade list, probably because his breakout year was too recent. But you can vote for ZywOo and Monacy in the category. You can vote until the 11th of August. There's still time to support your favorites. And yeah, on a side note, do you remember that Richard Lewis won the Journalist of the Year award at the Esports Awards 3 times? And yeah, there was no Esports Journalist of the Year award last year. But I guess you know that's basically because the Esports Awards are backed by the Saudis. Yeah, I think you got my point. Now, my friends, it's time to wrap up the third stage of Blast Austin Major. The final matches that decided who moves on and who goes home. We shall start with the 2-1 matchups. Vitality versus VP kicked things off on Train, and it was pure dominance from Vitality early on. They went up 6-1 at one point. VP managed to recover slightly, taking 5 rounds. But after the side switch, Vitality went right back to crushing it. They dropped only the force buy and closed out the map with ease. On Dust 2, it was deja vu. Vitality went up 5-0, then slipped a bit and let VP tie it up by halftime. But once again, Vitality reset after the break and stormed through 7 straight rounds, locking in their playoffs spot.
9 HP, no hope, no chance. Flick goes down, and there it is. The playoffs locked in. Vitality. They have done what they came here to do, taking care of business in...
Next up was FaZe versus the MongolZ, and it didn't start well for FaZe on Ancient. They were down 1-7, while Simple was stuck at the bottom of the scoreboard with barely 1 frag. But then Sasha snapped out of it. FaZe picked up 3 rounds in a row and ended the half 4-8. Not ideal, but still manageable. FaZe kept the momentum going in the second half. They clawed back to 8-11, where Frozen and Simple clutched a spectacular 2v4. They took the final rounds and won the map 13-11, with Simple pulling himself out of the bottom by the end.
Not using it.
Oh, they peek ahead of it.
Still missed anyways.
No way that both those players come into raw duels versus AWPers and walk away unscathed.
Simple took a fast step. He's going to take this duel.
Oh, he's against the wall. Blitz comes back, hits the dink, can't finish it off, and tackle dropped. 2v4 out of FaZe Clan.
No, it can't be. What a round.
On Anubis, FaZe started strong with the pistol and then the force, but Senzu fired back with an ace. Unfortunately for MongolZ, that was the end of their resistance. FaZe went on a 6-round streak and ended the half 10-2. After the side switch, they just finished the job with a dominant 13-4. Fun fact, this marks Simple's first ever major playoffs in CS2 and his first major playoffs appearance since Rio. Remember, the Blast Paris major, NAVI didn't make it out of groups. After that, Simple stepped away from the competition, struggling to adapt to CS2. Following the win, Simple thanked FaZe for the opportunity and said that this was the start of a new chapter. Now, another fun fact, if FaZe go on to win the major, we could witness a bizarre situation. The winner capsule would include the autograph of a player who didn't even play at the major. Yeah, Brokey the lucky one. Now let's finish off stage 3 with the last key matches, starting with the final 2-1 decider between NAVI and G2. The battle began on Mirage and it was neck to neck. NAVI took the pistol and the force, but G2 responded with a 3-round streak, including a clutch from Hunter. Once NAVI had their rifles, they fired back with 4 rounds of their own and pulled ahead. First half ended 7-5 for the Natas Vinceray. After the switch, NAVI kept pushing, taking 3 in a row. G2 struck back with 4 straight, but NAVI stayed locked in. Even after Heavy got knifed JL in a wild moment, NAVI held it together, took the final rounds, and closed out the map. Anubis then started strong for NAVI too. They grabbed 3 quick rounds before Malbs pulled off a 1v2 clutch to get G2 on the board. That gave G2 some life, but then they collapsed towards the end of the half. Just like Mirage, NAVI led 7-5. After the switch, NAVI won the pistol and then the force, looking set to close the map, but G2 had other plans. They turned up the heat and won 8 rounds in a row, completely flipping the script and forcing a third map, Inferno. And it started with G2 in control, going 3-1 before the game turned scrappy. Rounds traded back and forth until NAVI edged out a 7-5 lead again. After switching sides, G2 pulled off a small comeback and took the lead, but the tug of war continued all the way to overtimes. The first OTs didn't settle anything. In the second OTs, G2 made a fatal error, throwing away a 4v2. That gave NAVI the momentum they needed, and in the third overtimes, they finally closed it out to lock their playoff spot. Now the elimination matches. First off, Pain versus 3D Max. What looked like an easy win on paper turned into a serious fight. On Inferno, Pain had a terrible start, giving up 7 rounds early, but then they rallied just before the halftime, taking 5 and keeping themselves alive. In the second half, Pain turned the tables, winning 8 rounds while dropping only 2, taking their opponent's map back. Next up was Nuke, and here Pain started decently on T side, although 3D Max locked it down later, winning 8 rounds and taking the half. But once again, Pain clawed back. They forced overtimes and then swept it clean, eliminating 3D Max, despite the French squad looking strong at the start of stage 3. Next was Lynn Vision versus Legacy. This series was a blowout in both directions. It started on Dust 2, where Lynn Vision crushed Legacy 13-2 with a dominant 10-2 first half. Looked like a clean sweep was coming, but then things turned around. On the next 2 maps, Legacy completely dismantled the Chinese team, delivering back-to-back 11-1 first halves and easily closing out both maps. So yeah, Lynn Vision were eliminated from the tournament. Thank you, Emilia, it was a good run, but some things have to end. Now, the juicy part, MOUZ versus Aurora, a match that looked like it belonged in the playoffs, but instead it was an elimination game. It all started on Train, where Aurora came out swinging, dominating the early rounds and going up 7-2. But then the disaster struck. Jota accidentally shot Centaurus through a smoke, revealing his position. MOUZ capitalized instantly, won the round, and from there began a full-blown comeback. They tied it up to 10-10 and eventually closed out the map, stealing Aurora's pick. Next up was Inferno, and things were much closer from the start. MOUZ grabbed early control, but Aurora bounced back and tied it up to 6-6. After the switch, it was still neck and neck, until Vicaria stepped up with a massive AWP quadro that turned the momentum. Then Aurora just secured the force buy and went on to take the map. Everything came down to Mirage. Here, MOUZ opened strong with 3-0, but Aurora struck back with a 5-round streak of their own, so the half ended 6-6. But, my guys, from there, MOUZ just completely shut the door, winning 7 straight rounds on CT side and sending Aurora home. After the match, Major admitted that Aurora made way too many avoidable mistakes throughout the whole Major. Despite an easy win over FaZe, they later lost to Fury and gave away a round to G2 while the Samurai were on 4 Glocks. It just wasn't their event. Guys, what do you think about it? Tell us in the comments below. And the final day of stage 3 was all about the 2-2 matchups. The first one was MOUZ versus Legacy, and the question was, could the Brazilian magic keep going? Let's see. On Ancient, it surely looked like it. Even though MOUZ picked the map, Legacy completely dominated the first half, 10-2, and quickly closed it out, 1-0 to the underdogs. Next came Mirage, and things were much tighter. MOUZ started strong, but Legacy answered back with a 4-round streak, so the first half was tied. After the side switch, Legacy came out swinging, picking up 4 rounds in a row and looking like they were about to seal the series. But then, MOUZ woke up. They got a massive streak, winning almost 7 rounds straight, and then they took the map to tie the series 1-1. So the decider was Nuke. Once again, Legacy had a strong start. They won the first half 9-3, and it felt like another upset was coming. But after the side switch, their T-side completely collapsed. MOUZ locked it down, winning 10 rounds in a row, securing the reverse sweep. Another underdog story comes to an end, and MOUZ complete their comeback from 0-2 to the playoffs. Next up, we had G2 versus MongolZ, and it all started on Ancient. The first half was relatively calm, except for a nasty 1v3 clutch by Techno, which led to a tie in the scoreline. But after the side switch, the MongolZ absolutely steamrolled G2. They took 7 rounds in a row and didn't drop a single one to move on to Dust 2. There, the Samurai started strong with a 6-1 lead. They looked set to close it out, but the MongolZ started clawing back. They won 5 straight rounds and tied it up by halftime. Then G2 regained control, winning 5 in a row, but the Mongolians fired back with a 6-round streak of their own, so the game went to overtimes, and that's where the madness began. 1 OTs? No. 2, still no winner. 3, not enough. It took 5 full crazy overtimes before the MongolZ finally came out on top. But the real highlight wasn't even the OTs, it was the player stats, because SenZ dropped crazy 56 frags on a single map, setting a new record for the most frags on a map at a major. The previous record was Nico's 52 frags against Flipside. Yeah guys, in the ancient times when Blade was still playing 9 years ago. SenZ though was super chill. He just said that he changed his crosshair right before the second map, and he also had no idea that he just broken the record. It just kinda happened, quote unquote. As for G2, it was a mental collapse, especially for Twistzz and Hades, because this is basically their final match with the team. The Polish shopper said it was a complete failure, while Twistzz added that the roster definitely had potential, but he felt the work was too quick to pull the trigger on changes. And MOUZ also asked fans to go easy on Hades, saying he was in a tough spot and it's unfair to judge a player of one match. MOUZ also thanked Twistzz, saying he was always there and he always gave it all, no matter what the media said. And just like that, G2's run and this roster's story came to an end. Now let's move on to the last decider, Pain versus Virtus.pro, and the storylines here were wild. VP started confidently 2-0, but then they fell into the last chance bracket, while Pain clawed their way back from 0-2. First map Mirage, picked by the Brazilians, and from the very first rounds it was clear that this wasn't gonna be a quiet match. Did that energy though affect the score? Not much. Pain looked sharp on T side and closed the half 8-4. After the switch, they kept the momentum going and took the map. Next up was Inferno, and Virtus.pro started sharply with a 3-0, but Pain, once they got to the rifles, answered back and even took the lead. Then Flamus stepped up. He pulled off a clean ace, and it helped VP to close out the half 7-5. After the sides switched, VP shut it down completely, giving up just 1 round to tie the series. The decider was Dust 2, and it started brutal. Pain won the first half 10-2 and looked set to shut down VP for good. But the Bears weren't done. They clawed their way back, nearly winning 9 rounds in a row. They got within 1 round of overtimes, but then made a massive misplay to throw it. Comeback denied. Pain take the series and plunged their ticket to playoffs, while Virtus.pro are eliminated. So now the playoff bracket is locked in. Spirit versus MOUZ, NAVI versus Vitality, FaZe Clan versus the MongolZ, and Furia versus Pain Gaming. And guys, now let's make a bet. If FaZe Clan wins the major, I will prove to all of you that I'm not some AI voice. FaZe face reveal, you get it? The pun intended. Anyways, thank you for watching, and that's all for today. Don't forget to hit the like button, to follow our channel, and drop by in the comments below because it helps us develop a lot. Now, I'm not saying goodbye for a long time, and also don't forget to watch our video about ROPS that we released the other day. Yeah, and now I'm finally out. See you soon.